Good morning, sir. Yes, we can hear you.
Uh, so now I have there was a few requests that were made. One of it was with regard to I need a, like, in a sense, I will be sending you all a document, or if you all can actually individually send me a message of all the people who have joined this particular thing, because we need to have a sort of a register of who are the students who are coming, whether you all are coming properly, because even though my sessions are going to be independent, what I mean by independent is that if you don't come for the first class, it doesn't mean that you will not understand the second class. I mean, I try my level best to keep it as as different as possible, so that it doesn't get intertwined. But it is very essential for me who are the people who are actually paying a lot of interest and coming for the class, right? So the first thing foremost, right, we'll just wait for a few more people to actually join in. Today's session is about first aid, right? What is first aid? What are we going to do? We'll discuss a few things. We'll discuss a few things that are quite essential when it comes to uh, you know knowing what you can do, all of that, right? So the most important thing that I would like to tell you all is that you all need to actually make sure that whatever questions that you all are having, if you all have anything, please ask. Don't just keep it into yourself, which I've already discussed, which I've already told you all in the first class. So when we spoke about yesterday's, I mean, not yesterday, last week's topic, why early medical checkups early are important, right? Are there any questions based on what we discussed? Anything that you all thought about? Was there any changes that you all made with regard to your life? Did you talk about it with anyone, your parents, anyone about it, about getting themselves checked? Have you all done anything of that sort? You all can just unmute yourself and talk, or you all can send a message on the chat group. Anything is fine. So I'm assuming everyone just came for the class and then forgot about it. Is that what happened? Or everyone's way too sleepy to be speaking at this time of the hour? Okay. Right. Okay. So some people have sent me messages where I spoke about it to my parents. Someone has asked me, where do you get a medical checkup in Sri Lanka? Okay, a very good question. Does anyone know where? Does anyone know where we can get a medical checkup in Sri Lanka? I mean, it depends, right? You can go to every person might be having a family doctor, so they can go to their family doctor and actually speak to him, and then he will arrange the test, right? So you can go to any hospital or any clinic which does all those things, right? So usually in the government sector it works in a different way. In the government sector, what happens is you need to go to a doctor, and that doctor has to has to write to the hospital saying, please arrange. For example, let's just say that I get a patient who comes to some private practice, or somewhere, he comes to my hospital, he gets admitted, right? He gets admitted because he has an accident. Okay, let's just say he has a motorbike accident, and he gets admitted because he has some wounds in his hands. and because it is a judicial case where you need the police to get involved because it's an accident, right? He gets admitted, and when routinely when I'm checking his blood pressure is high. Let's just say normal blood pressure should be between 120 to 80. His blood pressure is around 150 90, right? He's around 30 years old, so I tell him we have to see his blood pressure. So what I do is I tell him, you come back again to the hospital and we'll see your blood pressure. And again, when I check his blood pressure after his discharge, is around 160 100. Then what do? I write a letter to the OPD saying that this patient who came incidentally, we found to have high blood pressure. Please arrange a medical clinic for this patient, right? After that is arranged, right? What happens is the medical clinic, he goes to medical clinic and then he will be told like to do a few more tests, and then according to that they will start his treatment, right? So that's how the government system works. But in the private sector, you just channel a good, now for example, it depends on what the particular uh, illness is. You can channel a good consultant, and then you can actually decide on where you want to, where you want to go, and I mean who you want to go and speak to, right? So that's how a medical checkup works in Sri Lanka. Don't worry, Luck regarding your first class, I will discuss it later whenever I get the time. Right. So a few more people who have sent me messages. Yes, doctor, I've told my parents about the disease. There's another person said yes, I spoke about it. Another person said yes, my dad is a doctor and he was also telling the same thing. Right. So it was very nice that you guys are interacting. It's very important that there has to be an interaction. Otherwise, this particular class is going to be useless. And especially today's class is going to be sometimes, I don't think I can finish it in one day, but we shall actually be, making sure that, you all discuss about it. And though for those who have not joined last week's class, don't worry. Now, today's class also, for those who don't get to come, this class is getting recorded, right? And if you speak to your counselors, that is either Mandy or Sumaya or Mr. Indika, Mr. Amila, whoever, Aisha, whoever is actually responsible for you all can get the recorded lecture. So through them, right? You all can't get it otherwise. I won't be distributing it, but the counselors will be responsible for that. So they will help you in doing that. But I won't be allowing everyone not to come for the class, but just join just whenever they have the time, they can read the lecture. That's not going to be the case. But there has to be a proper reason for you not to actually be present during the class, because it's unfair for the other people to wake up early in the morning to actually be present while it's happening, and for the others to sleep and get up around whatever time and listen to the class. That's not fair, right? But still lectures will be available. Other people who were not there for last week's class, don't worry, I will redo whatever is possible. The ones who are not there, I will redo it in some way so that you all won't miss out on whatever that was discussed, right? So that is that. So today's topic, as I was saying, as we've got enough viewers, uh, today's topic is about first aid, right? So is there anyone who has anything to say about first aid? Do you know what first aid is about? What do you know? If there is anything that you want to share, go ahead and tell me. Until then, I will actually my load the presentation. I think are there any students who were there last time for the classes? Because I know most of the students who are here today, most of them are actually complete new students. But from what I know, there are a few students who are actually, not mistaken, Abdul Rahman is here, who actually has been there for a long time with me. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. Can you all see my screen? I would request
Yes.
the others to actually, unmute themselves. I mean, mute themselves. Okay. I have muted everyone. Right. Right. The problem is this, like in a sense, make sure that if there is any way that you, when you get out of this whole thing, I have to again admit you, and during the lecture it becomes very troublesome, right? So therefore, I will try my level best to actually see, but I don't get to see that oftenly. Anyway, let's just start with the topic, today's topic, right? And that is first aid. So what is first aid? What are the principles of first aid? Has anyone heard of what first aid is about? Has anyone actually been a part of a first aid program, or been a first aider? This is the problem now. I have to admit people. Okay. Anything? No one. So that means you all have no idea what first aid is. So what do you think? Okay, now whenever teacher asks you a question, what do you think first aid is? Is it, what can be first aid? Come on, I want all of you all to participate. Otherwise, if I'm not participating, I told you there's no point of having this class. Otherwise, what I will have to do is I will have to actually individually ask you a question.
First aid is like a treatment given for.
Yeah, go on, go on. I like it when even two people. I honestly don't care. If two people also want to talk, I honestly don't mind even if they speak at the same time, because that is better than no one talking. Okay, so let's just say one person take a chance. I want both of you all. Whoever you all spoke, I want to tell. I want you to tell me your name and tell me what first aid is about.
I'm Zahra Ismail. And
Okay, Zahara. Hello. Yeah. What do you think first aid is?
first aid is like a treatment given to a patient before he could be rushed to a doctor, or
Okay. Okay.
like
Very good.
something that can be done at home even before he could be taken to
Very
another.
good. Okay, very good. Very good, Zahara. So Zahara says that treatment given to a patient before he's taken to a doctor. Very good, right? And something that first aid is something that can be even done at home. Now, Zahara has spoken about, has, even though her answer seems very primitive, she has actually essentially spoken about the most important essentials of first aid. One thing, that first aid can happen anywhere. You don't have to be in a hospital. You can be in the bathroom. You can be in a house. You can be in an unknown area. It can happen anywhere. Very good, Zara. Right. And the second thing is, it is the initial treatment. Right. What was the other person who was trying to say? What do you want to say? Tell me your name and say.
So I'm Gayatri.
Darshi. Hello,
And
Darshi. Go on.
first aid is basically, I'm Gayatri.
Gayatri. Okay, Gayatri. Go on.
Okay. So first aid is basically anything, any kind of assistance that we can give someone before when we are facing some kind of medical emergency. Before
Okay. Very
professional
good.
can help them out.
Okay, so now you
So that's
use the word
basically
medical emergency, right? So what does it now? Zahara was actually essentially speaking about the initial treatment that needed to be done, right? But one word that Zahara missed, which you actually brought in with another word, was medical emergency. So if it is an emergency, it needs to be what? It needs to be done It has to be done urgently, right? So first aid needs to be as urgent as possible. There's no point, now this is very important, I hope you all grasp this. There's no point it being a medical emergency, a person waits for around 5 hours and then you give first aid, right? It has to be immediate, it has to be urgent, right? So that those are the important aspects, right? As a whenever you think about it, first aid has not necessarily has to be given by a doctor. It can be any particular individual who knows a little bit of first aid can give the first aid, right? That is one. It has to be given urgently or immediately as soon as it happens, right? uh, it it can have, some of the things can be primitive methods, but those methods, if it is life saving, it is absolutely essential, right? So that is what first aid is, and that is the whole aspect of what I want you all to understand with this presentation. I want you all to pretend, right? In the meantime, in the time before you go into medical school, I want you all to look at things. Whenever someone gets something, you have to think about how, if you were there at that moment, not a doctor, but outside, what could you have done so that that would have helped the patient, and that would have helped prolong the time duration so that this person can get to the hospital on time. Now if you look at the statistics, now when you look at the significance of how important first aid is, if you look at why patients die, right? I will actually, with the presentation, when I speak about it, I will talk about the essence of it. It's because of the delay in bringing patients to the hospital, the most common reason, right? Can you see this aspirin on the right hand side? There is this thing aspirin. Has anyone heard what does anyone know what aspirin is? Have you all, do you all know anyone who uses aspirin?
Yes, as a pain relief.
As a pain relief. Very good. What's your good name?
Gayatri.
Okay, Gayatri. Gayatri, anywhere else? I mean, does anyone have any parents or grandfathers who have had heart diseases? No one? So aspirin, now aspirin is basically a drug that is good, very good. It's a painkiller, but most essentially, it is being used as an antiplatelet, right? So it helps to reduce clot formation in the blood vessels, right? So it is an antiplatelet. Now you all know what platelets are now, right? Platelet. What is the function of a platelet? What do platelets do?
Blood clotting.
Blood clotting, very good, right? So that they are the initiators of blood clotting, right? So they, if you use a drug that is an antiplatelet, it will help to reduce the clotting. Okay, so why do patients with heart diseases take aspirin and clopidogrel as another drug called clopidogrel? Why do they take that? Because why? They have blocks in their heart, as in their coronary arteries, and as there are blocks, to prevent more blocks from happening, who is doing these blocks? Definitely there is an atherosclerotic plaque, right? There is a cholesterol plaque that gets, deposited, and then it gets hit, and because of that, it actually, like, in a sense, then platelets come and aggregate, and they form a bigger clot. So to prevent that only, you give aspirin. Now let me tell you, a patient with chest pain, right? Any patient with chest pain, if it is a heart attack, right? Obviously, all have heard what a heart attack is, right? If there is a person who gives him 300 milligrams of aspirin with a few more drugs, you can prolong his life for an hour. So what happens is, this is the general term, you give the drug and then you bring him quickly to the hospital, because patients sometimes come to the hospital so bad that you can't do anything about it. They come with a heart attack, but they come after 4 hours or 3 hours because they have not taken it for seriously. But if you take the aspirin, right, and you come, still we have a lot of things that we can do to save the patient. right? So that is just giving simple aspirin itself is a first aid for this patient who is having a chest pain, which probably you think is a heart attack, right? So that's how important, right? That's how important first aid is. And let's talk about the significance and all of whatnot, right? Any questions so far? Look, I am actually keeping tabs of the people who are actually participating. So far, I have got two students who are speaking, that is Zahara and Gayatri. So I request everyone to contribute, because if you contribute, you will itself learn, right? So it's very essential that you contribute and you like in a sense say what you feel, or whatever, right? So let's when you talk about first aid, so I'm moving on, right? When you talk about first aid, there are 3 P's of a first aid, right? 3 P's of a first aid, like the way in uh, when you look at whenever you look at something, whenever you're discussing something quite essential, you need to actually understand the importance of it and what is the mandate of a first aider. What is a first aider supposed to do? This is the mandate of a first aid. Very simple, but very, very relevant. Preserve life. First piece, preserve life. That means you try your level best to preserve his life, to make sure he is alive. That is one. Second piece, prevent worsening. That means before it gets worse, you prevent it, right? So by bringing him early, if he's bleeding, to make sure that he's not bleeding too
Excuse
much.
me, sir.
Yes, go on.
Like, I'm not able to hear you properly, sir.
Everyone else is also having the same problem?
No, doctor.
No, sir.
Okay. Can you
Okay, I'll
what,
leave and yes, I'll leave and
yes, exactly. Yeah,
okay, sir.
exactly. Go ahead, I'll wait for you. So when we are talking about preserving life, how do we preserve a life? I will talk about it. Okay, if someone is unconscious, someone is actually dead, what have you all seen in movies that people do? If he's outside, let's see who can answer. Come
A
on, don't
defibrillator.
tell me. Don't tell me you all don't even watch movies now.
I think they use a defibrillator. Is that how it's
Okay,
pronounced?
defibrillator. What's your good name?
Faraz.
Afraz. Okay,
Faraz.
defibrillator. That's a very. You're from where, Afraz? You're from Sri Lanka, or you're from Sri Lanka?
I'm half Sri Lankan. I'm half Indian.
Okay. Okay. Afraz, have you seen a
Hmm.
defibrillator lying anywhere in Sri Lankan streets?
Oh no, I haven't.
You haven't. Have you been to any other country? Have you traveled anywhere?
Oh yeah, I've been in Dubai.
Dubai. Okay. In Dubai, have you ever noticed there might be next to bus stops, there might be a defibrillator
Uh-huh.
lying. I'm sure in Dubai they have it. So you're absolutely right. A
Hmm.
defibrillator is quite essential. But some places like like India, like Sri Lanka, we do not have the resources to actually have defibrillators plugged everywhere, right?
Hmm.
I'm not actually putting a system down. I'm not actually, because I'm a very, very, if you I love my government system. I love my government healthcare. I don't know about anything else, but government
Hmm.
healthcare, I always applaud it because of the service that we do, right? But
Uh-huh.
now we do not have. There are 2 types of defibrillator. Now what is a defibrillator? It basically jump starts the heart. If anyone understands car language or car lingo, you jump start a car. Have you heard of it? Where if a car is not starting, you actually kind of give it a kick, right? Same way, when a heart is actually not working, you can't even say not working. When it's actually not working properly, you can actually shock him. You can shock the patient. You must have seen in movies where they shock, they use these 2 pedals and they leave it, and then and as soon as they put it, the guy jumps up. I'm sure you have seen it. So that is what Afraz was talking about, defibrillator. But Afraz, what if we do not have a defibrillator at home? Is there anything else that you can do? Or anyone else who wants to answer? I don't want to put Afraz always on the spotlight. Anyone else has
CPR.
anything? Very good, very good. What's your good name? Who said CPR?
Yadusha.
Danushi. What, Janisha or Danushi?
Yadusha.
Yadusha. Okay, CPR. What does CPR stand for, Yadusha?
Cardiopulmonary respiration.
Not respiration, it is resuscitation.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
cardio, it's resuscitation.
Sorry.
Cardiopulmonary. No, it's okay. Absolutely okay. It's very good to make mistakes. Believe me, right? I'll tell you another thing. I'll tell you a story because it's very important, right? This is what this class is about. You all need to be yourself, say whatever you have, make mistakes. With mistakes, you will learn. You need to understand it is absolutely essential to make mistakes. Now, I remember when we were learning about CPR, I mistook it to PCR. So you know what PCR is? Has anyone heard what PCR is?
Like
I'm sure you all have.
polymerase.
Yeah, it's
The
PCR
polymerase
is the
chain
test that you
reaction.
do for coronavirus as well. It's a polymerase chain reaction where you try to identify which particular virus it is, and that is the test. So it's called polymerase chain reaction. So whenever in the class, when this was during medical school. Now you all are not even in medical school. There was a time where I used to say, we have to do PCR on this patient. A patient has died, right? You need to, when the lecturer was asking me, we have to do PCR. I was in front of the whole lecture hall and everyone's like, what the hell is this guy talking? What is PCR? But in my head, I was referring to CPR. You understand? So it's absolutely okay in making mistakes. All of you all understand that you will make mistakes. That being said, when you all be doctors, right, you all will kill patients, right? That's going to happen. You all will make mistakes and that might cost a life of a patient. It has happened to me, but I have learned from that, right? Because sometimes due to medical error in judgment, right, we do make mistakes. Doctors do make mistakes, but the most important thing is to learn from those mistakes. Just like this, now you said cardiopulmonary respiration. Next time, remember, it's not respiration, it is resuscitation. So what is cardio?
Heart.
What does, yes, very good. What's your good name? Is that Yashoda or is it someone else?
It's Gayatri.
What's your name?
It's
Gayatri.
Gayatri, sir.
Gayatri, yeah. So cardio is heart. Pulmonary?
The lungs.
Very good. Resuscitation is to bring someone back to life. You resuscitate. You basically, it's a fancy word that is used to say, I resuscitated him. I brought him back to normal. That is what resuscitation is. Respiration, on the other hand, is breathing, right? Your respiration, not even breathing, but in a very cellular level, it's about producing ATP. Anyway, okay, so that's very good. So preserving life can be done using a defibrillator or be done by doing cardiopulmonary resuscitation, that is, cardiac massage, right? Cardiac massage, where you place two hands, right, onto the chest, left side of the chest, and you massage the heart, right? We'll talk about that later, right? And then prevent worsening. I gave you an example. If someone is bleeding, right, you try to prevent him bleeding more. So you might put a tourniquet, or you might actually press on it so that the bleeding will arrest. And the third P is promote recovery. You make sure that he will recover as soon as possible. You will promote it. You will enhance it, right? You will catalyze it, right? So these are the 3 P's of a first aider, which is quite essential that everyone should know. So that's preserve life, prevent worsening, and promote recovery, right? Let's move on. Okay. Now this is where I speak to you about the significance of what we do, right? So this is from a survey that I took from the Wall Street Journal. This is, I think, quite old, right? So because I think it was in 2012 journal, but because this journal emphasizes on what I speak about, right? So they say that over 6 months between October 2001 and June 2011, right? A team of military doctors reviewed 4,596 autopsies of troops killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, right, between October 2001 and June 2011. Of those men and women, 4,016 died before they reached a surgeon. So that means from that 4,596 autopsies, right? So that is autopsies are already, people who have passed away, who have died, right? 4,016 did not even reach a hospital, right? So that means that only leaves around 400, less than 400, who actually got to the hospital on time, right? From that 4,016 who died, right, before reaching a hospital, 976 had potentially survivable wounds. What does that mean? They had wounds that should have not killed them, right? They could have survived with those wounds. Now, just because you get a cut, do you die? No, you don't die at all. You treat it, right? So from these 970, they were not very life-threatening cuts. They were not life-threatening wounds. They could have easily survived, right? And from that 976, 888 bled to death. So that means they were bleeding. They completely lost all the blood, right? And because of that, they bled to death, right? So from that 888, 598 suffered a hemorrhage within the torso, right? 171 died of bleeding their arms or legs meet torso. 119 incurred fatal wounds to the extremities, right? So now when I speak to you about the things that you can do as a first aider, you will understand if you were there, you could have done something like, for example, apply a tourniquet. If someone is having some kind of, this thing, you could have, there are a lot of things that could have been done if someone had a little bit of knowledge of first aid, right? So that is what I want to tell you. Two important things. One thing, most of the patients who pass away, the reason they passed away is because of the fact that, like, the doctor can't do anything about it, is because there was a delay in bringing him, right? Or there was something that could have been done which was not done, right? And the worst thing is, he dies without realizing things that could have easily been done by just a normal person, and that could have saved his life or her life, right? So this is the significance of first aid. First aid is so important. It helps doctors like us be able to save patients, because sometimes when patients come late, we can't do anything about it. It's already too late, right? For example, again, let's take an example of a heart attack, right? There are different types of heart attacks. There's something called STEMI. It's an ST elevated MI. I told you about what MI stands for. Remember, MI stands for what? Let's see how much you all are paying attention. I'm not asking the ones who are here for the first time. What does MI stand for?
Myocardial infarction.
Infarction. Very good. What's your good name?
Hasini.
Hasini. Very good, Hasini. So myocardial infarction. So that's the proper medical way of saying a heart attack. So when a person has got a STEMI, that is a ST elevated myocardial infarction, he only has 6 hours. If he comes between 6 hours, we can give him a drug. If he comes after 6 hours, we can't give him that drug. We have to treat him conservatively, right? Now, that doesn't mean the person will die, but usually STEMIs are the worst type of heart attacks. STEMIs are the worst. They are very acute. They have blocked the whole artery. So that has to be treated as soon as possible. And remember, I told you about this aspirin. You give that aspirin, it will definitely improve his outcome. It will give us more time, and we can, even if it goes to 7 hours, we can give if this person has been given aspirin on time, right? So that is the significance of giving aspirin for a patient who is suspected to have a heart attack, especially a STEMI, right? So if he comes around after 10, 12 hours, we can't do anything about it. What can we do? We can't give that drug, because that drug can cause, he's having a heart attack, but because of that drug, it can cause bleeding in his brain, and he can die because of that, right? So that is why that drug cannot be given if it is prolonged, if it is more than a particular number of time, right? Same thing, patients who come with stroke, right? If they come within 4 hours, we can actually thrombolize it. We can thrombolize it, but if they come after, sorry, we can't do anything about it, right? So these are very important, essential things that need to be understood. And that is why a first aider, he doesn't sometimes have to do anything. He just has to say, quickly go take him to the hospital. That can be the function of a first aider. Don't wait at home, take him to the hospital as soon as possible. So this is the essence of a first aid. And that is why it is very important, as medical students, as people who are going into the medical industry, that you all need to emphasize this. You all need to create awareness amongst your colleagues, amongst your parents, amongst your peers about how they also can be first aiders, and that on the long run will help you as doctors. That is what is absolutely important. All right. So if a patient, let's take an example, right? If a patient comes, if let's just say one of you all, is there any volunteers who would want to volunteer on a conversation with me right now? Because it will be easy for me. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask anything crazy. I just want a volunteer. Everyone's way too scared.
Yes, sir, I will come.
Okay, very good, very good. I was actually going to say that whoever it is, the first time we meet for a practical class, I'll give you a chocolate. But anyway, you volunteered way before that, right? So I don't have to give a chocolate, right? So what's your name?
I'm Dinushika, sir.
Dinushika. Okay, Dinushika.
Yes.
Right? Let's talk. Right?
Yeah.
Imagine that you are at IMC. Okay. You
Okay.
at IMC. And you are waiting outside, and all of a sudden you find a person on the ground, right?
Okay.
I think, or maybe not another person, but you know that person and he's fallen on the ground.
Okay, sir.
What are you going to do?
All of a sudden, I will go see what happened to him.
Okay, you will go see what happened to him. Okay, and then
Yes.
when you go to him, he's not
Okay.
talking. Now let's just say his name is Afraz, right? Afraz is not Afraz. We'll put some other name. I don't want actually to do jinx it because some people are. Let's just say his name is John, right? John is your friend. Okay,
Okay,
Nishka.
sir.
John has fallen on the ground, and you're trying to say, John, what's up? What's happening? He's not talking.
Okay. Yes.
What are you gonna do now?
I will see for the person who is nearby me. I can't do anything by
Yes,
myself.
very
also.
good. So then what are you gonna do? No one is around you. This is on a Sunday. Y'all just finished the class with me, and I've gone to the hospital. I am not there. No one is there. You are alone. The security guard is also not there. What are you gonna do?
I'll try to call the ambulance, though.
Okay. So you reach out your phone. You have a phone. You call the
Okay.
ambulance. Okay.
Okay.
Call an ambulance. Tell me what number do you want to dial?
199.
199. Okay. Let's try. I'm calling 199. Okay.
Is that correct, sir?
I don't know. This is what I'm telling you. 199. I'm calling. Let's see. I'm actually honestly calling. Okay. Yeah. Invalid number. John is still on the ground. Already 2 minutes. Now John has started making weird noises. What are you gonna do?
Okay, I'll try to take him to the hospital through auto.
How are you
or
going to try to
something.
take him to the
No.
hospital? Okay. Now you're
I will-
trying to go into
Three
how
wheel.
are you
Yeah,
gonna
so by
do
three
that?
wheel. By three wheel.
By three-wheeler. Okay.
Yes.
So you're going to wait until the three-wheeler, stop a three-wheeler and tell him to take him to the hospital. Okay. Right. Okay. Good. Very good, Dinoshika. Right. Anyone else wants to run the same scenario with me?
So
Do you feel that? Yeah. Okay. Forget everyone else. Dinoshika, would you have changed anything with what you did? Anyone else wants to actually say that, okay, I would have not done what Dinushika did. I wouldn't have done this. I would have done this. Or someone who said, no, I didn't even know he's unconscious. I would have at least checked if
Excuse
he
me,
was
sir.
alive. Yes, go
Excuse
on.
me,
What's
sir.
your name? Yeah.
I'm Hansini, and I have heard some position called recovery position.
Very good. Very, very good. Okay.
Actually, I have done some first aid. It's called as St. John's Kitty Cadet.
Very good.
And
Very good.
I
Okay.
have learned there are the recovery position. So I'll just try that recovery position for that patient, and I phone 1990.
Very
And
good. Right. Very good. Very good. Very good. Stop. You can continue. Hold on, but I want to stop.
Yeah.
So she said she's going to now recovery position. I will talk to you all about what recovery position is, especially when someone is having a fit, right? I will talk about it, why we put him. This is the, I will teach you all about the anatomy and all. I will teach you with examples, right? Why you have to turn him on the left side, not on the right side. Do you know now? Let's see Hans, whether Hansini knows. Hansini, now what is the recovery position?
Actually, sir, the hand supports to the head and the knee stops body from rolling into stomach, just like that.
Yeah, but it has to be turned on which side, right or left side?
It's left side, I think.
Left side. Why left side?
Actually, I have no idea about that.
Exactly. Now this is where you need to now a simple first aider will say just turn in the left side. But because y'all are not simple first aider, y'all are going to be learning first aid because y'all are going to be one day doctors. Y'all should know why. Always question like why left? Why I can put him in the right? You know, anyone can ask no. Why not right side? I can say no. You, as you said, I will make sure that he doesn't roll over. His hands should be on his head. His legs should actually meet his abdomen so that he doesn't roll over. But it can be on the right side. Why not right? Why not right? It should be right. No? Every time right is right. No, why should we put him the left? So these are things that you'll have to question, and I will tell you. I will tell you all why left, why not right. What is the reason? Right, which when we discuss a particular case, I will tell you, especially when we discuss about fits, right, I will tell you all why left, not right. That's very good. So she's going to put the person in recovery position. That's good. And then she's going to call for help. So even Dinushika also did the same thing, but the number she dialed was wrong. So the number, what is the number, Hansini?
1990.
1990, right? So now, right now, I mean, I was when I started doing these programs where I started educating people about first aid. At that time, no one even knew what 1990 was, right? But now everyone knows about it, and it is absolutely essential that everyone should. You know why? Now at this moment, Dinushika, I hope you're listening. At this moment, this was just, you know, just a random person. You don't even know John. It was just a scenario. But just imagine if it happened to you then and there. There is a level of panic. If it's someone, for example, now if I say if it was someone, some loved one, if it's someone who you know, if it's some either your parent or a very good friend of yours or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you know, so what would have happened? You would have started to panic, and that panic would have not done any good. You understand? So that at that panic time, you will not even be able to dial the number properly, right? And what happens is people don't know, so they waste time. Now you could have easily Googled. Now a very smart thing you could have done was Google the number that you are supposed to call, or you know, find out the number. A lot of people like, I'll call an ambulance. What's the number? What is the number? Who will I call? I don't know. Are you going to type ambulance? And I mean, yeah, there are different private hospitals, but 1990 is a service that is being done in Sri Lanka, which is completely free of charge. I hope everyone listens to this. It's free of charge. They actually are placed at the nearest police station to where you are located. So if, for example, you call 1990, you tell them that this thing has happened, and the first thing they'll ask you is, where are you located and which is the closest police station? And they will make the call to the dispatch to that particular police station 1990, and it takes less than 10 to 15 minutes for that ambulance to come. As soon as you have called for help, you know that the ambulance with a staff who knows what to do will come for the patient. Until that time, you can do whatever you think you know for that patient. So John was actually, you know, on the ground. She put him in the recovery position. That's okay. You call for help, which should have been the first thing. Calling for help, right? That should have been done first, and then you could have actually at that time, if you knew how to check the pulse, if he was breathing, if he was talking, you know, you could have checked all of that in the process of the ambulance coming near you, right? Now, a thing that is different to what I have been discussing before is with, you need to make sure that you are safe. So when you go towards John, you need to make sure you are safe. So let's just say he's on the other side of the road. You don't just run to that road. You make sure you follow this thing, because you don't need to be another victim. So you need to go as safe as possible, and then take him and make sure he's also safe, you are also safe. Another thing with this current situation, make sure he's with a mask and you also with a mask. You understand? So these are important things that you all have to understand, right? Just because he's on the ground, that doesn't mean that you forget your safety. You need to make sure that you are safe and then go help someone else. Just like when you all go in the planes, I mean aeroplanes, or the flights, they tell you to put your oxygen mask first and then put other people's oxygen masks. There's no point in you going and being a hero and saving others when you're going to die. You understand? So make sure that you save yourself so that you can save more people, right? Same way in this whole aspect of providing first aid, you need to make sure that you are safe and then you are giving safety for the other. Are there any questions? Right, so calling 1990 is the first thing that you need to actually do, right? So let's talk about the survival kits. This is the sort of things that you need to do when there is a patient who is critical or in a form of an emergency, right? So how you will make sure that the patient will survive, and there is a chain, right? So the first thing is early access. You quickly call for help. That is what I was actually emphasizing, where when John was on the ground and he was unconscious, you need to actually call for help as soon as possible. Because like you take 5-10 minutes seeing what exactly is wrong and all of that, what is going to happen? You're delaying that 10 minutes because you could have done that after making the phone call. You make the phone call and then see if he's okay, right? Because there's no harm, because he's on the ground, he's not talking. You can say, John, what's up? He's not talking, he's unconscious. What are you going to do? Give him, I have a chocolate bar, I will give him chocolate, maybe he has not eaten. Don't do all of those things. Always call for help. You don't know what exactly is the problem, right?
So I have a question.
Yes, go on. That is what I want. I want you all to have questions. Go on.
In this case, let's say John was unconscious right now in the current situation of COVID, and you realize that he doesn't have a pulse, so you have to perform CPR. With the
Very
current
good.
situation, you don't know if he has corona or not, so how would you handle that situation?
So basically what I will do is I will not give him mouth-to-mouth ventilation, and I will just give cardiac massage.
Without the 2 rescue breaths, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So that is mouth-to-mouth ventilation, because we don't have anything else now.
Mhm.
So again, depends. It depends from person to person. A lot of people tell that I have this hero complex. So maybe at that moment, if it's a young patient, if it's a young boy, I would not care. If it's a young boy, if it's very young, if he's less than 30 years old and he's without a pulse, I will still give the rescue breaths, right? That is my judgment. I don't expect everyone to follow it, but that's me. So I don't, that means which is wrong, which is exactly the opposite of what I told you about being, safety. But for me, as an experienced person in the industry, I feel that a death less than 30 years is not acceptable. So therefore, I will do my level best in giving. I will give the rescue breaths, right?
Thank you.
Taking the risk. But if it's someone elderly, in her 70s, 80s, I won't, because there is no point for me for lives, right? Taking that risk. Just to save one individual, I am risking myself. That's not this thing, because that way I can save so many more people. Why am I wasting it on this person? So that's my logical thinking pattern, right? Some people will not even consider. If it's a 30-year-old, they'll definitely think, he's got COVID and maybe he's fallen because of that. But I'd still do it, because I would rather take that risk and make sure that he survives, because a death less than 30 is not acceptable in my eyes, right? So I will go ahead and do it. But then yes, if he's elderly, I'll make sure that he's having a mask, right? And I'll make sure that there's a mask there, or I'll usually wherever I go, I carry extra mask with me. So I'll put him a mask and I'll start my CPR. Before CPR, I'll call 1990 and tell them to come. I'll carry out CPR, because that's the most important thing. The heart has to circulate. The heart has stopped. The heart has to circulate, and I will do that. Until then, I will try to see what exactly is the reason. While doing CPR, I'll try to see if there is any other. Has he fallen on the ground? Is he bleeding from somewhere? If there's anyone else around him, I will ask what exactly happened. So if they can relate to me, if there is any hints to see what exactly is the cause for his heart attack or for his death. I mean, for him being for his heart to have arrested, right? I will try to find a cause. And then when the people, I mean, when 1990 people come, I will quickly tell them to get a spinal board, put him on a spinal board and get the 1990 guy to continue CPR. And I will put a cannula and give him one shot of IV adrenaline, put him on a cardiac monitor and take him as soon as possible to the hospital. While taking him to the hospital, I will check for his sugar, right? Because sometimes these people can actually die if he's a diabetic. I have no idea if they've not got a history. Sometimes they have low sugar and that is why they arrest, right? So by giving him the sugar, by treating his sugar, I might be able to recover. I might be able to get him back. So there are a lot of these things. Then I might see if it's a ventricular tachycardia, right? That is a different type of rhythm. Then I will, because in 1990 they have defibrillators, I'll defibrillate him while taking him to the hospital. So I will try my level best to preserve his life and prevent him from getting worse, right? Which would be a function. Even though I'm a doctor, as a first aider, I would still do all of those things, right? So I just gave you a overview of what I would do. Now when I was talking to you right now, when I was answering this, I was thinking of myself being there. That's what you need to do. Like all of y'all, when y'all answer, y'all be like, I'll do this, I'll do that. No, imagine you being there at that moment, right? Imagine whenever I was answering, that is why when I got a little carried away by what I will do in the ambulance and all. But it was because I was thinking on my feet. I was thinking if I was there, I would do this. I would get someone else to call. So that's how important it is. That's absolutely how important it is. In medicine, you need to visualize things. You need to visualize in such a way where you will be able to then later on recognize things immediately and have solutions to problems immediately. Any other questions? I hope I answered your question. Okay, I'm assuming that was answered. So early access is one, right? Early CPR is the other one. Early defibrillation and early advanced care. So they are a chain, right? One doesn't go without the other. You can't just do early CPR and forget the other three. You have to understand that all four have to happen simultaneously or in a sort of a process, right? So this is very important. You all need to know what the 3 P's of a first aider is. You all need to know what the survival chain is and how essential it is, where one cannot go without the other, right? So for today, I'm only going to discuss one case, right? One particular case. So any other volunteers who can volunteer? Anyone wants to volunteer? Let's do this scenario. Or are you waiting for me to offer a chocolate? Anyone else? I mean,
I'll volunteer.
okay, very good. What's your name?
Yadusha.
Yadusha. Okay, Yadusha. Right. Now, Yadusha, you have experience as well, no? No, that was Hansini, right? Right. So let's just say that Yadusha, you have any good friends that you know?
Yeah.
Any random friends name. The reason I want you to make it personal is because then you start thinking, right? You start imagining yourself being there. That is the reason I'm getting a little personal with you, because it makes you realize, okay, right, she's there with me. So tell me a friend of yours who you would want to be there with you.
From here, I know Shazna well, so Shazna.
Okay, so you and Shazna are going in the highway, right? You are going in the highway, and while going in the highway, you all realize on the other side, this is like maybe you all are coming from Galle, right, to Colombo, and you're driving, Yadusha, and Shazna notices on the other side there is a toppled car, and there is a man outside who's on the ground.
Okay.
What are you going to do?
First, we probably go and check if he's breathing or responding.
Okay, hold on. So you're in the car. So what are you going to do? You're going to stop the car. Okay,
We'll probably
right.
drive close to it and stop there.
But
And
you forgot. This is exactly where I was telling you. You're not thinking on your feet. Is there any way in a highway you can go on the other side with your car?
no.
You
Uh,
understand? This is where I
yeah.
want all of y'all to start actually logically thinking about it. Now, how are you going to go
The
get to the other side?
ambulance. First call the
Yeah.
ambulance
So
while
now
you're in
what?
the car.
Now there is nothing that you can do. Can you get down the highway
No.
and walk on the other side? There is cars coming at such a high speed. Okay, you're just going to kill your own self. You understand? So what can you do? What's the best thing that you can do, Yadusha?
Call the ambulance from our car, from when we're driving. Shazna
Exactly.
can.
Just
Yeah.
say that this has happened and tell them there is a this thing urgently who is on this side. We can't actually get there, but please send an ambulance as soon as possible. You have done your part. That is absolutely enough. You have done your part as a first aider. That is all that was required. Okay, so that the reason I gave that is I want y'all to make sure that y'all think, y'all are just answering. I'll do this, I'll do that. No, imagine yourself being there, and that will help you all to logically do it. Like for example, let's just say again, right? A patient now imagine that this was in a normal road and you were walking. What are you going to do again? Now tell me.
Again, first call the ambulance if you're driving before you park, and then
Okay.
check the traffic on how it is, and then you cross safely,
Very
and
good,
then
very good.
you check if he's responding, if he's still responding to whatever you're saying, and
Okay. So wait, hold on,
then
hold on, hold on. Hold on. I'll stop you. I'll stop you. He's near the car and he's also there, right? And he's also a little on the road. What are you gonna do? So you're gonna check for him responding first, or what are you gonna do?
no, first move him to a safer spot.
Very good. Move him to a safer spot. So take him away from the car because you do not know if the car might burst, right? And you want him to be safe from the incoming traffic, right? And okay, so you're doing that, okay? And then
And then, like Hasini said before, I think, put him into recovery position and then check for bleeding, any sort
no,
of
okay, okay. Okay, so
injury.
now how will you check? What are you going to check first?
First his pulse
Okay, you're going to check his pulse. Okay, where are you going to check his pulse?
on his
Any areas
wrist,
that in his wrist? Okay,
yeah.
okay. So there is no
And then
pulse. What are you going to do?
before I perform CPR, I need to know if there's any injuries on his back so that I don't apply too much pressure. Check if he's bleeding anywhere.
Okay, okay, okay.
And
Right.
then if
But
he's not,
okay, now okay. Well, listen. Okay, you should. In medicine, right? In medicine, sometimes all of you listen very carefully. It is very, very essential. Sometimes by doing something, it will put him in a risk. There is definitely a possibility that it will cause this patient to go. Give me a minute. Give me 1 minute. Okay. So where were we? You were going to check his pulse in the hand, wrist, right? Okay. No, I was going to tell you all something very important. Okay. Listen to me very carefully. I hope everyone listens to me very carefully, because this is, let's just say, a wise set of words from a person. You all won't realize how important it is right now, but you all will realize it when you all become doctors. Okay. That is how important what I'm saying right now is. Sometimes when a patient is you might feel by doing something, right, I will actually bring him, there are effects to it, like in a sense I'm doing this for his good, but sometimes there might be adverse effects, or effects that I don't want, but sometimes it's possible for them to be there. Right now, what did you say? You said that I will first see if he's having any wounds in the back. Very good. I like the fact that you're thinking. It's important that you're thinking, right? But then based on that only I will give CPR, right? Very good that you thought about it, but what's the point of him having a wound at the back when his heart is not working? Because that's the most important thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter he's having any other thing. He needs to have a cardiac muscle because his heart has stopped working. There is no blood that is being pumped to the brain. There is no blood that is going anywhere, right? So at that moment, you don't go to see the wound. Yes, you all must have heard, about spinal fractures, but what's the point? Is it better? Is it better to bring him back to life or keep him as a paraplegic? That means, paralyze him. I would still consider at least bring him back to life. Right? That is what is very, very essential. So there always comes a point where you have to make a judgment call. Right? So another thing with CPR, right? Let's just take CPR. When you're doing CPR, you sometimes, when you're doing good CPR, you break the ribs. So are you saying that you're giving more force? No. My consultant says, how do you know if you're giving proper CPR is when you crack ribs, when you hear the sound of cracked ribs, right? So sometimes these things happen. You need to figure out what is the mandate, what is the reason, is this the most important thing? Yes, giving him cardiac massage is the most important thing, and you need to forget everything else and just do it.
So
I hope you understand.
Yeah, so I understood, but I have a small question there. Let's say
Go
there's
on.
a big glass shard from the car window or something like impaled on his back.
Very good. Okay.
So in that case, if you perform CPR, there's a chance of it impaling in even more, right?
True, very true. But then it depends on where exactly. Now on the back, the beauty about this is the beauty of the human body. Impaling on the back with such force, it has to pierce a set of like in a sense, first it has to pierce through the vertebral column, right? Depending on where exactly. Let's just say it's from the sides, right? If it's on the sides of the thorax, on the left side of the thorax, right? So it has managed to not go towards the vertebral column, but it goes through the back muscles, right? And the back muscles are very thick, right? There are muscles called erector spinae, latissimus dorsi. All those muscles are very thick. For it to go through all of that and come into the chest cavity is very, very, very unlikely. But if it does happen, a person like you, if you see that, okay, I will actually not do it. I mean, if you feel like, no, I'm not going to take that risk, don't do it. But if I was there, what I would do is I will still have to do CPR, right? I will not try to remove it, obviously, but I will do CPR, making sure that at least his heart is beating. So in an instance that is it is a complicated case. Very good that you thought about it. What you need to do is you need to open him up. You need to do something called an open thoracotomy, and you have to do open cardiac massage. What I mean by open cardiac massage is you need to put your hand into the chest cavity and massage the heart, because that you can ensure that it doesn't impale more. You understand?
Yeah.
That would have been the ideal thing, but because you can't do it outside, right? You still have to make sure, because look, you thinking, okay, it's going to impale more. He's anyway, the time duration that you take him, he's going to die, because he's not going to be. You can sometimes bring him back, but he might become a vegetable, because his brain will be dead, because the neurons in the brain can only withstand for around less than 5 minutes. If they have if less than 5 minutes, they don't get enough oxygen, they die. And you all have obviously learned the nervous system does not regenerate, right? So there's nothing that you can do. You understand? So these are judgment calls that you need to make. And I'm very, very happy that you thought about the scenario as well, which is very good, which is quite essential as a medical student. You need to think about situations, and always, this is another thing I always tell everyone, that in medicine, every time there's a statement, there'll be something like a but. This has been proven to be very useful, but this can also be done. Every statement, you take any particular statement in medicine, there's always these exceptions, and that is given in the form of a but, right? So like this was also what an exemption, where you can't do CPR because or you might actually, now if it was directly into the heart, obviously how are you going to do it? If it had pierced the heart, you can't be giving CPR, then that's like you're just directly killing him more, right? But if it's from the back and you think it's not going to affect it too much, then you can. But an inexperienced person not doing CPR because of that, absolutely understandable, right? But a person who knows his or her stuff can visualize the situation and start CPR as immediately as possible. Are there any questions?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, great. Anyone else has anything else? Okay, let's finish this scenario, okay? Because I want to finish this scenario so that we can discuss the other scenarios later next week, right? So now, okay, so now you have actually done all those things, right? Now I'm going to not waste a lot of time, and let's just talk about the basics, right? So we have a sort of a algorithm on how we go ahead and basically, see these kind of patients. It starts with DRABC. So D is danger. So make sure that you are safe, right? You actually what for example, like you said, that you will cross the road by seeing it. You make sure that you as well as the patient is safe, and that is danger. R is response, right? So now I asked you a very important question. How will you make sure that how will you see he's alive or not? And you said you will check his pulse. Anyone else have any other answer? Or if you wanted to change your answer, how will you ensure that this patient is alive?
See his breathing.
Okay, how will you check what's your name?
Zahara.
Zahara. Okay, he's breathing. How are you going to check his breathing on a Zahara?
First by keeping your hand near his nose, if there is
Okay.
airflow, and
Okay.
then
Right. Anyone else? That's okay. That's understandable. Anything else?
We can check his pulse via his hand.
Anyone else have any other answers? How you can ensure if he's alive? Or
So to
without
keep
checking
our
his
ear near his chest and hear if his heart beats.
you can't hear his heartbeat. You can't hear his heartbeat, but yes, you can keep your ear next to his nose and you can see if he's breathing, right? That is what you call look, listen, feel, which I will explain later, right? No, anything else? Now, how do your parents? Okay, this is the
Check
example I'll
whether
give you.
he responds to any
Very
sound
good.
touches.
Exactly. Just ask. You just tap him. You just tap him and say, "Are you okay?" Simple, right? You just ask him if he's, "Are you okay? Can you hear me? What happened?" Right? Are you okay? Is there is there anywhere you're having severe pain? If he talks to you, if he opens his eyes, you have to check his pulse. Obviously, no person with a pulse, no person with no pulse will start talking unless he's a zombie or anything, which I still don't believe. But my point is, if he's talking, you don't have to go check his pulse. You don't have to do anything, because obviously if he's talking, he has to have a pulse. If he's talking, definitely he's able to breathe. You understand, right? So that's the first thing. That is response. Now I was going to give you an example where your parents, when you're sleeping, to see if you're alive, do they come and check your pulse and okay, he's alive? No, just talk to you. Puta, get up. As soon as you wake up, okay, he's alive, or he or she is alive. That's the same thing that you need to do with these patients. See if he's responding by just Like as you said, by sounds, by just talking to him, if he's not responding to sound, you can actually, you know, rub his sternum. That's another way where it's a tactile maneuver where, you know, you rub the sternum and that irritates the person. And he will, you know, start making sounds, or he will be like, oh yeah, you know, he'll wake up basically. You know, some people pinch the nose, you know, a lot of things are there, right? So that is what response is all about, right? So let's look, this is the primary assessment, right? Danger, is it safe to approach? If no, stay at safe distance and call emergency service, right? Calling 1990. Response, you get to the patient, is the casualty conscious? That means if he is not responding, then you say the patient is unconscious. Then only you do all these things where you check for his breathing, you check for his pulse, and then only you can say, okay, this patient has arrested, you know. So that is how it is. So D is danger, R is response, A is Yahweh, B is breathing, C is circulation. So Yahweh is the Yahweh free? Is there anything in the mouth that is blocking? I will talk about all those things. Breathing is the patient breathing properly? And C is circulation, right? Are there any questions so far? Any questions? Because I think today we've learned a lot. I mean, I've spoken a lot about these things. We will talk about the maneuvers of Yahweh breathing circulation. We'll talk about seizures and we'll talk about cuts the next week. Is there any other questions that you all have? Anything else? So
Doctor,
we'll talk about mouth to mouth, what is look, listen, feel. All of these things we will do it next week, right? And we will talk about another scenario, right? And accordingly, we'll actually talk about the things. Yes, go on.
yes. So the thing is, like, let's say if this particular patient has any kind of internal, internal bleeding in the cardiothoracic area,
Yeah.
how that affects CPR? Would it be advisable to go ahead with CPR, or is it even can we even see it visibly? Like you can't actually see it visibly, right? If there's internal bleeding.
So basically it's like this, right? So what when there is blood inside the chest cavity, right, or the pleural space, we call it hemothorax. Heme is blood, hemothorax, because obviously he might have, you know, ruptured an intercostal vessel, or he might have ruptured a big vessel and that has caused him to bleed. Still you need to do CPR. But the point is CPR will hinder. Our CPR won't be effective because that blood is going to be pressing on the heart. So we won't be able to effectively do CPR. So what actually you need to do is that is why you sometimes need a person. That is why you need to wait for help. So a person will come and actually, you know, if a person is unconscious like that, we'll quickly come and intubate the patient, right? Intubate him and check his lungs. And if he feels that his lungs, the yaw entry, that means the yaw is going less to one side, right? And he's hearing different sounds. He knows that he's actually bleeding inside, right? So what you can do is you can put a chest tube. You put a tube into the chest, right? And that will help to drain whatever, either sometimes there can be also that can actually go into the lungs, which is called a pneumothorax, right? If it's blood, it's hemothorax. If it's it is pneumothorax, and then you need to evacuate that. As soon as you evacuate that, it will be the patient sometimes will regain his consciousness also. He can actually, you will feel a pulse. So these are reversible causes where you can actually treat it. Like I said about hypoglycemia, right? What is hypoglycemia? When he's having low sugar. So if I give him sugar, sometimes, you know, he'll get a pulse. His pulse will come back. Same thing like the way example that you gave. If he's bleeding inside the chest cavity, right? The only thing that you have to do is you need to evacuate that. But then obviously if you can't do that, you have to try your level best to doing CPR in that, you know, in that very difficult situation. That's not going to affect it might cause more bleeding, but there is nothing that you can do where you have to take that judgment call. You have to say that is where CPR comes at the top. It is priority number one. The other causes, yes, you have to understand that you can't do anything about it in the field, but you have to continue giving CPR. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, doctor. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else have any other questions? Now it's all question time because we are going to end the class now and we are going to discuss the other set of things next week. Are there okay? There are people who actually. I'm just going to. Is my screen still shared? So I'm going to stop sharing, right? Like that. Okay. Okay. So people have said CP or AB. Okay. Those glasses are tempered. Okay. So all of you all have replied for this thing. Okay, so there are some questions. If you all have questions, please feel free. If you all don't want to ask in person, you all can just send me a message, right? So I'm just going to read through these things that there are. One of my relatives got a heart attack, but doctors say that he didn't have cholesterol. How can that be? Okay, good. Right? Heart attack does not necessarily need to be because of cholesterol, right? That being said, a thin person can also have high cholesterol. Just because he's not fat doesn't mean he doesn't have high cholesterol. Okay, so you understand all these things. She's very thin. How can she have cholesterol? No, Varadi, right? Remember that cholesterol is different and obesity is different. Yes, it has a sort of a connection, but just because you're thin doesn't mean that you might not have high levels of LDL, you might not have high levels of cholesterol, you might not have high levels of triglycerides, right? Now you ask why he has a heart attack even though his cholesterol levels are normal. Because of there are other causes that can cause heart attack. There are so many causes. Smoking itself can cause heart attack. Hypertension, high blood pressure can cause heart attack, right? Other risk factors like tobacco, all of those actually can actually increase the chance of that patient actually having a heart attack. So it does not necessarily mean heart attacks are because of an atherosclerotic plaque. It can be because of anything. Because of high blood pressure, it damages the arteries there, and because of that damage, platelets come and aggregate, and because of platelets come and aggregate, more platelets come in. So that's how clot mechanisms work during high blood pressure and other things. Smoking also, it causes endothelial dysfunction. Anything that can cause the endothelial to dysfunction, it can cause a heart attack if it is in the coronary artery. Is aspirin work immediately? Yes, aspirin does work immediately. It takes time, but it has an immediate effect. So immediate, as when I mean immediate, not 5-10 seconds, but at least 50-30 minutes, 15-30 minutes has an effect where it helps to reduce the progression of a clot. If aspirin is not available at the moment, what would be a good alternative? Well, you don't have to give any alternatives. Take him as soon as possible to the hospital, right? If you don't go while going to while going to the hospital. Mahatya in the chuttak will go to the pharmacy and get him an aspirin and go. Don't do all of that. Just take him straight to the hospital. Okay. Check, yeah, all the other things are above with regard to okay. So there's another question that has been asked: what is the difference between a cardioverter and defibrillator? Right, so cardioversion and defibrillation is two different things. Defibrillator is when you give shocks to a heart, that is it is asynchronized. That means just you're giving shocks. A cardioverter is something that with the heart rhythm, you're going to give the shocks, right? It is in cardioversion, you give regular shocks in the pattern of a heartbeat, whereas defibrillator is just one single shock. So that is what the difference is. It's a little too complex. Don't worry if you don't understand, but that's because you asked the question, I have answered. Sir, can we recover position if it's broken? If, for example, are you meaning if someone is having a fracture or a vertebral? Yes, you have to think about it. If you think that there can be some fractures in the spinal cord, you have to be very careful in, you have to make sure that you're giving stability, especially the cervical spine. If the cervical spine is, you feel that there can be a cervical spine fracture, you need to make sure that, there are maneuvers, chin lift and all, you should not do. Also, you need to move him very gently, because sometimes the fracture fragment can cause paralysis, right? So you have to be very careful with regard to that. Otherwise, if there is anything else, you can still put the patient in recovery position. I will explain why essential recovery position is important next week, while discussing the anatomy of the thorax, discussing about how the trachea, right bronchus and left bronchus are placed, and why we take him to the left. Anyway, I'll explain all that next week. Can aspirin be given to patients with all forms of heart attacks or diseases? Now, the thing is this, remember this, any chest pain, listen to me very carefully. Any chest pain is always a heart attack until proven otherwise, right? Anyone complaining of a chest pain is a heart attack until proven otherwise. So you need to prove that it is not a heart attack and then treat whatever else. Now, sometimes some people might have a muscle pain, and that is why they're having they are having a chest pain. But if you are not sure, you can treat it as a heart attack. So just because you give aspirin to a person who doesn't have a heart attack, no harm, right? But there is more harm if you have an aspirin lying and you have not given because you're not sure. Just give the damn aspirin if he's having a chest pain, left side chest pain. Okay. Any more questions? I guess there are no more questions. So thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed this session. We'll continue this session next week, right? Hope to see you guys. Be there sharp same time, 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. See you. Take care. Bye. And if you all want to, re-listen to these lectures, you all can speak to your counselors and get the whole video session of what we discussed. Take care. Have a good morning. Okay. See you. Bye.